Welcome to Built, Trusted, Chosen, the podcast for leaders and marketers in trades and construction, hosted by Wes Towers from Uplift 360.
Hello, Roggen. It's good to be with you today, and thanks so much for joining us on Built, Trusted, Chosen. If you'd like, I'm really keen to unpack some of your story. It's a really interesting story with how you've grown up and everything. But just to set the scene, if you'd like to tell the audience who you are and where you're from, what you're up to these days.
Yeah, Wes, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, my name is Roggen Frick. I'm the CEO of Bear Ironworks. I've grown up in the construction industry. I started at a very young age on my dad's lap, learning how equipment works. I've operated from a young age. Grew up, ended up getting a degree in construction management, worked in the construction industry for a few years, and then started my own company. And now I actually manufacture construction equipment and sell to the industry.
Yeah, love it. Growing up in the construction industry must have been a bit of fun. I've listened to some of your material. You got to play around with some of the equipment with your dad, which was cool. I mean, I only had Tonka trucks as a kid in the sand pit, but you got to play with the real deal.
Yeah, it was. I had the Tonka trucks as well, and then you go down to the shop just down in front of our house there, and he had an excavation business. He had tracos, backhoes, loaders, skid steers, dump trucks, had it all, and he taught me how to run a traco at a young age, and he taught me how to dig a hole. And I think I was about 3 years old, and I would go out there. He had to actually start taking the keys out of the equipment because I'd go start it myself, and all his guests would be like, "Oh, your excavator's tracking away on its own." He's like, "Oh, that's just my son. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of an interesting thing. I've always found it interesting that the world seems to push people into desk-based jobs, go to university and things like that, where it seems a lot of us are wired to want to do things with our hands and build stuff. And it seems as though the world has pushed people away from the desire to build stuff, which is curious. Did you always want to get into construction related fields, or what was your path with all of that?
So I grew up with him. He did the main scope of work that he did was abandoned mining reclamation in Colorado. So we were always working in high elevation mountains and very technical operating that he was doing. And I'd be with him the whole time. He also taught me how to weld, doing that because some of the closures would require welding. And that was kind of like the experience that I had growing up. I wanted to go into film and actually make movies, but when it came time to pick a career at the end of high school, I was like, well, I already know construction. I think it's going to make more money, and I kind of like the people in the construction industry better. So I think I'll go ahead and just go with that. And I'm glad I
Yeah,
made
double
that
down.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great choice. Kind of difficult to get into the other creative endeavors sometimes, but it's a great path that you've taken. And so, from what I understand, the how did you get into the construction field more as a professional? What was the path for you?
Yeah, so like I said, my dad's company, he had me, I was a foreman at 16 years old, so he had me running some of these projects and running some crews for him. And then when I went into the construction management educational side and getting the degree in it, I started
Yeah,
doing the classes in it, learning all the building materials, learning the financial management, learning scheduling, learning all that. And then I did an internship with a company called FCI Constructors. They're a commercial builder in Colorado, and started learning the commercial side of construction because I had grown up in the civil side. So I understand dirt and
yes,
moving dirt and all of those parts
yeah,
of it. So the education really focused on commercial construction. I learned the master format, started to understand how to build a building and do vertical. Um, and through my internship, I worked on a handful of different projects. I've worked on new K-12 school builds. I worked on a power company's headquarters, and then I did a lot of school renovations, which are very interesting projects to work on and that's what I did when I got out of college for them, was manage those. And you have 3 months that the kids are out of school, and the school needs everything done in those 3 months, and they only have so much money to get it done. So those have their own unique challenges to them.
yeah, sure. And so, launching business, how did that sort of take shape? What was the opportunities, and how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so for Bear Ironworks, it was the Grizzly Rock screen that we make was our original product. That was my dad's idea. So I'll give him all the credit there. And he was just kind of, we were making them as a side thing and sending them to Ritchie Brother auctions, and just kind of having some side income from it. I even made one in my high school ag class and sold to a friend of mine. When I went to college, I raced motocross, and so I needed to have somewhere to put my dirt bike where I could actually work on it and keep my tools and everything. So um, he suggested, why don't you make these Grizzlies? You can just, if you weld like two or three of them a month and can sell them, then you can probably pay for your rent and have a little bit extra money. So that's what I did. And, the auctions are only far and few between. So I built a website and started marketing them, and pretty soon found that I stumbled upon a niche there. And I was getting demand across different state lines. And I didn't know a lot about running the business at the time. I didn't know how logistics work. So I was doing the deliveries myself, and I'd come back and weld them up. I hired a fellow classmate and taught him how to weld so he could help me make them while I was either at class or traveling. And he had a good work ethic, which I thank him for that, because there was a lot of late nights. We'd work until like 2 a.m. welding these up and then go to class the next day. And that was the
Yeah.
round one of the company. It became hard to juggle the business and go to school all at the same time. I decided that I was going to focus on my degree and finish that. So I shut the company down and, worked in the industry for a bit. And then my dad, he was like, at this time, he was working for Kiewit, which is a major builder. And he was getting really tired of long hours. And he asked me, do you think that we could turn this business into something bigger if we do it together? Because he saw that I was good at the marketing aspect of it and was starting to figure that out. And then, he has more operational experience than I do. So he knew how to set that part up easy. And he had some other product ideas that he wanted to launch. And so we joined forces together and set up operations. And eventually I came on full time and started developing the process. I started applying those principles I learned in school of lean management and everything, even though it's a construction management degree. I mean, it applied to manufacturing really well, because it's a repeatable process, setting it up and making a good scheduler, and having all the putting in a system where we know what materials we have, we know all of our costs, and identifying all that so that we can offer a good product to the market. And we've done pretty good with that so far. Now I think we're the leading manufacturer of Grizzly Rock screens in the United States. We have a handful of other products that we're bringing on. We're starting to do shoring, concrete washout tubs, and some other products there. So it's been a very interesting journey.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure the depth of understanding of the construction field, and particularly with the excavators and so on, with what you're producing now, and you're right in saying it's manufacturing, but it's so similar. Well, it's you're using a trade to build the thing. You're welding these things together. But I'm really curious where you started. There was a lot in there, but where you started, you said something about you needed somewhere to keep your bike. Is that for real? Is that the main motivation?
That was the
into
main motivation. Yeah, I mean, we
Man,
stumbled upon this. We didn't really know that it could be this big of a business. And I think that it's only a business that exists because of the internet, because we have to sell them to all 50 states to actually do what we needed. But yeah, it's like, I just wanted to have my dirt bike with me at college. It's always been a passion I've had growing up. I was racing them, and I had it in a storage unit for a couple months. And I was like, this sucks. I can't get in there at nighttime. I can't work on it. They're mad if I change the oil. I need a shop. And so if I wanted a shop, I was going to have to work for it.
yeah, oh, wow, that's so phenomenal. The way you start, and I think that's the truth of how lots of success occurs. You just get busy doing whatever you're passionate about, and then opportunities kind of pop up, and you see those opportunities, and when they align to your skill set and your understanding of how things work, you can take those opportunities. But that was a really great way to cut your teeth in business. But I mean, you chose to shut that down and continue your studies. Was that a difficult decision at that time, or was it kind of made best sense?
That was the decision I was leaning towards when I was juggling it, because I started failing classes. It's ironic, right? Here I am, I'm doing the accounting and the books on my own company, and then I'm not paying attention in my accounting class and I fail it. It's like
Right.
I shouldn't be somebody that's failing it. So that was like a big wake up call for me because I was always a good student and always had A's and B's, and to fail classes was something I never would do. So it was like,
Right.
okay, you've bit off more than you can chew. You're not focusing because I'm still trying to be a typical college student, socialize and all that.
Yes.
And I was like, I got to either go with this business or go with school. But then I actually wrecked my motorcycle and couldn't actually do the welding anymore. It was like maybe fate. I
Yeah.
don't know. And made me focus on my school. And the value of that education was good. And anybody that's going to college, it's only as useful as you make it. I see so many people that go through their programs, they cheat their way through, they just get by, they don't absorb what they're learning, and they can't apply any of those lessons that they were taught. If you truly absorb what they're teaching you, there's a lot of good information there.
Yeah, that's so true. And what I can see in the entirety of your path is you've seen the value in whatever it is that wherever you're at right at that stage of time. So you saw the opportunity, you saw the value in studying properly and building good foundations into yourself, so you
Mhm.
could set up the business in the second time around. So did you say second time around you started with your father? He was getting a little bit burnt out with his career path. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he was working. He was working on a major, a liquid natural gas plant in Louisiana. He was kind of the head of the night operations for it, and he was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a night, and he was just getting real tired. His health was kind of going downhill a little bit. He was away from home, and he wanted to make a change, and so he was just like I'll run the operations if you can do the marketing stuff. So I was doing all the marketing and trying to develop the business part of it after work and a little bit after school because it kind of started about the time that I was finishing up school. My
Yeah.
stepmother's also involved with the business. She took on the administrative side. She was a nurse at the time, working full time, and so she was doing like the bookkeeping and the accounting and things like that, human resources type stuff, insurance, all after work. And my dad, he was the only one that was working full time to help it get started. But
Yeah.
I believe it was truly a team effort to make it happen because I couldn't weld at the time. My
Right.
dad, he couldn't do the marketing part, and neither of us two could do the accounting. So we made it work.
That's awesome. You had an instant team and all different skill sets that could collaborate and work together to get it done. I think
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I love the way you first started. It was almost like a pilot for the company itself, and starting with
Right.
a basic website. And is that
Yeah.
right? And you started with a basic website and saw there was
Yep.
massive opportunity in it.
Yeah. I just, used Wix. It was easy enough to start learning to do web development with a tool like that, built a basic site, and it got enough, it got out there enough with my limited marketing skills to be able to get enough leads in and make enough money at that time. But it was, I learned lessons about web marketing, started to learn a little bit more about Google ad campaigns. And, I learned a big lesson. Round one is like the shipping is like, this business isn't going to work if we can't figure out how to ship these. So it gave us some
Right.
time to sit back, kind of get another plan going for round two of how we're going to attack it differently. Built a better website, hired an agency to do our Google ad campaigns, figured out the shipping part a little bit better, and continually work to improve that. And it's those lessons that you learn throughout different stages of your life that really bring the most value to your success in the next stage.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And so so when you went about starting the company with your family, really, your father
Mhm.
mostly, and you had that mix and blend of skill sets. How did you go about building out a team from that point on? The next few hires, what did you do to build it?
So first we got the first hire was a experienced fabricator that
Yeah.
had a higher skill level than both my father and I. My dad was a trade welder throughout his career, but we wanted somebody that really like was good. So we got a oil field pipe welder that those guys definitely understand how to make different assemblies and things like that. And so hired him. He helped us develop the products and make them a little bit better, improve upon what I've already made, and
Yeah.
develop these new product lines. Started to get a little bit of a team going, and then during this chapter, we're trying to we were doing hot shots and trying to broker the trucks out ourselves, and it was kind of expensive, and that was hurting sales because when somebody hears it's going to be $2,000 to $3,000 to ship something, that's a lot to take, so that can kill a sale right there. So the very
Yeah.
next thing that we identified is that we needed to figure out the shipping and logistics, the area of the business that we both none of us knew how to do, didn't understand at all. And so the next move that we did is we hired a operational manager, and we hired him for his expertise in logistics. So he already was managing trucks for another company in town, quite a bit of them, and understood that industry very well. He didn't have manufacturing background, didn't have any industrial experience, not really any construction experience like we do. And that was what we were looking for. We used him, we said, okay, we'll teach you how to manage the manufacturing and build this system to where we can manufacture products and teach you all that. And then your job that we're hiring you for is figure out the shipping. How can we get this shipping figured out so that we can ship these goods all over the country and actually increase our sales? And that was huge, monumental decision there. And I that's one of the principles I stand by is when you're looking to hire a major player on your team, hire somebody that is going to fill in those gaps of your knowledge or those things that you can't do. And then you're a more cohesive team. You're stronger all together and you can cover each other's weaknesses.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I always like to say to hire people that are smarter than you in their field of expertise. And the reason I like to suggest that is there's less potential for you to micromanage these people because they're better.
Right.
They're better than you at what they're doing. So you can just trust them to do a great job, and they bring something new to the table and improve what you're up to, rather than there's always that fear that if you hire someone, they're never going to do it quite as good as you can. You always hear that, but it's simple to get around. Just hire someone better than you are, and it's a simple solution. It sounds as though that's how you built with family first, because you had different skill sets, so you weren't treading on each other's toes. But then when you went to hire, you followed that same principle and got people who are experts in their fields. I think that's awesome. So and then building trust in a small team. How have you gone about doing that?
So the trust, one of our core foundations, and I actually stole this core value from FCI constructors, and it's honesty. And I believe that that's a great core value to have in a company, because that is what will build trust. If you are honest with each other about the good and the bad and just be completely transparent, then you're going to build that trust up within your team. We're very open, honest about, this is the status of the company, this is where we're going, these are the decisions that we're making, and this is how we're thinking about doing things. And we invite them to be honest with us about things in their life. And if they have some type of personal problem going on, or they need some extra time off, or whatever it might be, right? We want them to be honest with us, so that way we can help them through it and get around the problem. And so building a culture around that, I think, is important. And then another thing that we really care about hugely, this is big in the construction industry, is safety, right? So we have that trust that they can be honest with us, and then we put a lot of effort into safety, but not like a smack you on the hand, you did something wrong, but we're going to reward you for doing things right type of safety culture, which that builds a trust with them that we're looking out for them, making sure that they're going to get home safe every day, and that we genuinely care about them and their lives, and we do. And, it's something that starts off slow, right? The first handful of employees, it's higher turnover rate and different kinds of characters that you would have come through the door. But now we have a very solid crew that we trust, we depend on, and we have their backs, and I know that they have our backs.
Yeah, that's so good. It's brilliant to have everyone connected in a powerful way like that. How do you facilitate those discussions where you have that open and transparency? Is it like a weekly, toolbox meeting, so to speak, or how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so we have our weekly operations meeting, and that's between the executives and then the management of the company. And through there, the other thing too is we trust our managers to manage their people. I don't overstep him and try to manage the production floor employees, because his job is to manage them. So in this meeting, that's when he can bring any types of concerns to us about the employees that might fall outside of the policy guidelines that we've developed, or are kind of gray areas, or it's something that we want an exception to the policy, and we can discuss that openly amongst the whole team. And then if it's something like personal or something like that, we make it whenever we're there. I shake everybody's hand and I tell them, if you ever need anything, or there's something wrong or something that you want to talk to, you can contact me directly. Even, it doesn't matter who it is in the company. They can come directly to me, and we'll talk about it. And just having that open door invitation, I think is huge.
Yeah, brilliant. And so how many employees do you have now?
10, including the owners.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect of everyone who knows each other, so they can just knock on your door if they feel they need to. That's brilliant.
It's definitely easier in a smaller company. When I was at FCI, they were getting to about 500 people in their company, across different offices, across different state lines. And it was about at that teetering point where that smaller company feel that they've always had, it was starting to have that shift in the culture where, okay, well, now this is a corporation. They don't care about us as more. There was those like internal discussions amongst employees, and you could tell that it gets harder to keep that culture as you scale. And so props to them for being able to keep that culture alive and keep that company feeling that way as it grows. I feel like the leaders of that company do a very great job at it.
Yeah. No, I can understand that as you grow, there's more of a disconnect. I mean, you can have the greatest of operations and procedures and policies, and you just think you'll roll it out at scale, but the human element is really difficult sometimes. And so the chosen piece for the show in this instance, it's probably more about being chosen for people to want to work with a team like yours. What aspects you mentioned? The first few people potentially had a little bit of turnover, but you've got a really solid team now. What keeps people at your company when there's probably opportunities popping up all over the place, and there's always an enticement of someone who's prepared to pay more, those sorts of things?
So we've got a couple things going for us. One, we're not in like an area with a ton of economic opportunity. Now there is industrial opportunity. There is definitely other welders in the area, and other manufacturing companies like Leitner Poma is a big ski lift manufacturer that's in our same town, and they make ski lifts all across the world. So I know that we're trying to compete with them. So the things that we can do is we can try to offer time and benefits and money. Those are like the three things that you can offer as an employer outside of the culture aspect of it. So we've developed a good culture, but that's not always enough to keep somebody there because money talks. So try to pay as good as we can and pay within reason in town. I think that we're pretty competitive in that area. I think we're in line. I don't think we're the highest paying welder in town. But the other two things that we do is that we made sure that we got good healthcare benefits for our employees. That way they're healthy and taken care of, as well as their families. And we do a 4-day work week. So we do 4 days, 10 hours a day. So we're still getting our 40 hours in, but they get a 3-day weekend every single weekend. And I think that time is very valuable, especially for those employees that have families. And what I've noticed there is the employees that I retain the most are families. They have kids. They have a wife. They want to be home every weekend, and so that time's super valuable for them. The employees I have the hardest time retaining are the young kids. They just learned how to weld, and they can go and get $50-$60 an hour, but they got to go somewhere else in the country, and maybe it's not the greatest working conditions. It might be outside in the cold, frigid weather. So those are the employees that are hardest to retain because they're not locked down geographically to the area.
Yeah. And so that's brilliant. So I love that idea of the four days of 40 hours over 4 days. So is it did you say the Friday you have off typically? Friday,
Saturday, and Sunday are off, and then if it's rare that we have to work overtime, but if we ever do, you're still getting your 2 days of weekend that everybody else gets in the country. So
got it. So you use up a little bit of your Friday if the team has to.
If you have to, we probably work like 4 Fridays a year. Like we've got our manufacturing processes down that we can get everything done within our standard work week.
Yeah, great. And so you touched on, that's brilliant. I can see how that would really be beneficial for the families, because there's so many activities, on a
Mhm.
Friday after school sort of thing. If school finishes at 3 o'clock for kids in your region, is that right?
Yeah, and now
Yeah,
we work 7 to 5, so the our employees they're going to be out after the kids are out. But
yeah.
it seems I haven't had any issues with that. It seems like they've been able to figure that out within their own families. So
Yeah, but they've got that Friday fully available
right,
to go and do some fun
yep,
things as a family, or whatever it might be.
yep,
That's brilliant. And so another thing you touch on too. So it's a smallish kind of town or region that you're in.
mhm,
So there's not a lot of other opportunities for your workforce. But on the flip side of that, there's also not a lot of people for you to hire as well. So the
right.
importance of keeping those great workers involved and wanting to work with you is important, because there's not a great deal of other people coming on board. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're like I said, we're more, even though we're a smaller area, we're about 70,000 people in Grand Junction. We are
Oh yeah,
an industrial town. And so there's a welding program, there is a college there in town. Um, and so we do actively try to develop the workforce, of the
yeah,
area. It benefits us and all the other welders, which we need as many as we can get, as everywhere else does. We need tradesmen to do their trades. And we'll hire kids. We've hired kids straight out of high school before, that have a good work ethic. We've taught them, this is how the saw works, this is how you cut, and start working them up into being a welder. And then we've also hired kids out of the welding program in the town, and you know let our experienced welders teach them that next level of fabrication, and product management and product design, and
yeah.
let them work on some of the custom jobs that we do on the side, and
Yeah, and so
develop that
you're a
workforce.
reasonably young guy as well. Presumably, you look at, so I
Mhm.
suppose you relate really well to the younger people coming through as well. It's not like you're an ancient guy trying to,
Right.
run the company and so on. You've got a bit of depth of age, presumably. Your dad's in the company, and
Yep.
and you've got young kids and coming through. Do you find that different age brackets have different mindsets and so on to work with?
I've noticed that, yeah, I think every generation thinks a little bit differently about stuff. The young guys that we've had come through, I think and it could just because of the qualities we're looking for when we're hiring a young person, but they seem to have a good hardworking attitude. They seem to want to show up, and they'll do some of them will do the hardest jobs that the foreman assigns them to. Maybe the jobs that not everybody else wants to do, and they'll do it, and keep their head up. And um, the age gap's interesting. One of the things, I've always been tasked in charge of people older than me, because I was in a management position, kind of heading projects at a young age, for doing the school remodels, and working with a lot of different tradesmen, a lot of different ages. People have been around, doing that trade longer than I've been alive. And so
Yeah,
I've found it very important to, communication and transparency, right? Those are one of the things we talked about earlier. Communicating with them and asking them questions about their trade, and not coming in like I'm an expert. Just because I have a construction degree doesn't make me an expert on your trade. It doesn't make it that I can do that any better than you can. And so communicating with them, and being involved with it, and making sure I understand their perspective has been huge, because respect is earned, but being somebody younger than them and above them in the organization, I have to earn that respect so much harder. It's so much harder to earn that respect. And so you have to be very careful about how you do it. But once you earn that respect, what I've learned is those guys, they know that I understand what I'm doing. They know that I'm looking out for their interests, and they know that I consider their concerns when looking at a problem. And that really helps us build a good team.
yeah, yeah. So I suppose there's advantages in hiring young people, because you can train them in the way in which you would like things done. But then there's also, when someone's been doing it a long time in other companies, they might have different ways, and sometimes, I don't know, maybe sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse, and having that you've got to have those discussions. I suppose that can be the art of leadership in dealing with those sorts of things, because people can be set in their ways sometimes. Well done.
Breaking old habits is difficult.
Yeah, 100%. Cut it. If you've always cut a certain corner, you'll want to keep cutting that corner because it just feels convenient for you. That's just human nature. This has been a really great conversation. Is there something I should have asked that we didn't cover? If there was a question that I didn't ask, what was that question, and how would you answer it?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Let's see. We covered quite a bit of different topics and philosophy and different principles of business. I would say, asking me about the operations. This is something that a lot of people ask. They want to know where I'm at. Well, this is something that's unique about this company. I've been able to build it remotely because we started in the middle of COVID. I got in the habit of working remotely, and the actual driving factor that made me move away from Colorado to South Carolina. So the business is in Colorado. I'm in South Carolina. Is my wife was going to law school, and she took me with her. So I was forced to develop a business without being able to put my hands on it regularly. And so that changed how I thought about problems and how I approached solutions, because it limited what I could do. And sometimes, and this is still true for the roles today, is the things that I can do, I will do. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners will see that. If I can go out there and run the saw, I'll run the saw, right? If I can go out there and build the website, I'll build the website. So all those operational things, I had to build a system that and teach those people and make sure that they understood it. That way it runs. And the operational part is always the part that I have the least headache with, because I built it that way. The marketing side and the administration side and all the other parts of a business, the technology and the IT integrations, those parts are still the parts I struggle with and have a hard time with, because I'm still hands-on involved doing it. And if I would just hire somebody out and make that better, then those processes would improve.
Yeah, it's so true. Sometimes we do something because we can, but that doesn't mean we should all the time. So that's brilliant. Yeah, the working remote, being forced into situations sometimes creates the best outcomes. So you learn a whole bunch of stuff starting in COVID times, and then the capacity to move because your wife had the opportunity to study elsewhere. That's brilliant that you've set your life up around your business to support your life rather than the other way around, which is sometimes we get that wrong a little bit. This has been a brilliant conversation, Roggen. Now, this is the global audience obviously listening, so there's going to be some people who might be able to connect to the company and get value out of that. So if you'd like to share something about the company and how they connect with that, but also if you'd like them to connect with you directly, over to you to explain how that works.
Yeah, so if you want to reach out and learn more about Bear Ironworks and the products that we offer to support excavation, you can visit beariron.com. And on there, you can see all of our products, all of our shipping. And I mean, even if you guys are on the other side of the world, we'll do our best to try to get it to you. We've shipped our products all the way to Guam before over the ocean. So we're here for our customers. And if you guys want to connect with me directly, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Roggen Frick, Roggen Frick.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. And I'll put those links in the show notes as well so people can easily find them and connect. Thanks so much.
Sounds great. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Built, Trusted, Chosen. Brought to you by Uplift 360. Visit uplift360.com.au.